Ever since the Revolutionary War, guns of all types have played a crucial role in the development of modern warfare leading up to modern times. They have easily become one of the world's most commonly used weapons. The first ever use of firearms began in China around 700 AD. Scientists and inventors discovered the usefulness of gunpowder, and weapons such as fire lances, multi-barreled guns, artillery rockets, and cannons were developed. There are several ways to identify and classify a gun in terms of size, ammunition, rate of fire, and weight. The most common way to identify a gun is by its caliber, which is the approximate diameter of the gun's barrel, usually measured in inches or millimeters. This helps determine which size bullet is required. For example, the AK-47 assault rifle is a .308 caliber in inches. Another way to classify a gun is by its rate of fire, the frequency at which a weapon can fire projectiles. This is measured in rounds per minute, or sometimes per second. For example, an M2 Browning rifle has a rate of fire of 800 rounds per minute. An M134 Vulcan minigun has a rate of fire of 2,000 to 6,000 rounds per minute, which rounds out to about 100 rounds a second. When military units first began using guns, they had a certain way they had to stand. The soldiers stood in rows with the shorter ones in the front. Once the first row shot, they had to immediately kneel to avoid being shot in the head by the second row. While the second row was shooting, the first row would reload. The military tactics have since then much improved. The weapons today are much more accurate and can travel much longer distances. This makes soldiers able to move around and hide instead of standing in lines. During the Revolutionary War, the main weapons of choice were rifles and muskets, mainly because it gave infantrymen a greater range of damage. Rifles could reach up to 350 feet and still be very accurate. This was considered very good for the time, since bullets back then were round and heavy. Reloading guns back then was a potential threat, since they didn't use bullets today. They used black powder, which was very flammable. In fact, many soldiers died reloading a gun because of the black powder catching fire while they were reloading it. This is the Brown Bess rifle, a commonly known rifle for its time. It was used in the British and the United States Army for more than 100 years. Originally invented in the United Kingdom in 1742, this gun would be the model for gun makers to follow. Fast forwarding to the Civil War, this war is considered the first war of modern warfare, mainly because it used the most advanced technology and innovations of warfare that were available at that time. This is the first war in which percussion caps instead of flintlocks were used. The difference between a flintlock and a percussion cap: when you pull the trigger on a flintlock gun, it creates a spark, which ignites the black powder in the gun, shooting the projectile. When you pull the trigger on a percussion cap gun, it hits a little percussion cap, which creates a little explosion, igniting the black powder, shooting the projectile out of the weapon. One of these percussion cap guns used in the Revolutionary War is the pattern 1853 rifle musket. Designed in the United Kingdom in 1853, this rifle was a very successful weapon which, in the right hands, could hit targets up to 2,700 feet. Almost a century later, in World War II, guns started to become very advanced. Most guns were semi- or fully automatic weapons. Some rifles continued to be bolt action from World War I, however. The M3A1 submachine gun was a common used gun during World War II. Developed in the 1940s in the US, commonly known as the grease gun, it was a cheaper substitute for the Thompson submachine gun. This is the M1 Garand rifle. Originating in 1932 in the US, this 24-inch rifle was common for the American soldier during the war. Modern-day rifles were first used in the Vietnam War. Most soldiers were equipped with an assault rifle, usually semi or fully automatic. One of the most common and well-known rifles in the world, the AK-47, was used by the US during the Vietnam War. Developed in the Soviets in 1951, it originally had many flaws. It still is a fairly flawed gun today, but it is the most common weapon to this day. Possibly 100 million units of this rifle have been produced worldwide. It doesn't have the greatest range nor the greatest sophistication, but it is quite reliable as an assault rifle. The M16A1, developed later in 1982 in the US, was and still is one of the most well-known guns in the US. Originally known as the AR-15, it was accepted by the US Air Force in the early 1960s, where it was taken in as the M16. Composing of a bolt-action closing device and a revised flash hider, it was easy to clean and maintain this rifle, which gives it a good reason to be widely used. Many of the guns used in today's wars are some of the well-known perfected guns of the past. The M16 is widely used by the US, as mentioned before, along with other rifles, submachine guns, and light machine guns. This is the Sonar M63. The US finished the design of this gun in 1962. Developed by Eugene Stoner, it has a modular design and 15 basic sub-assemblies that can be put together in 6 different ways. These include a submachine gun, a carbine, an assault rifle, an automatic rifle, a light machine gun, and a general-purpose machine gun. In 1966, Germany produced one of the most well-known and widely used guns in the Navy SEALs, the MP5. Also available with a rigid plastic stock, it is one of the most versatile weapons to date. Navy SEAL models come with fully ambidextrous trigger group being safe, single, 3-round, and full auto, a retractable stock, and a threaded barrel for mounted steel suppressors. Originating in Austria in the 1980s, the original AUG assault rifle is fitted with a bipod and a heavy barrel, producing a light machine gun. It comes standard with an optical sight and carrying handle, but these can be swapped out for other sights and or attachments.